let me protect you. And I'm not good at what I do because, I'm a good agent. I'm good at what I do is because I care about what I do, right? I invest time in what I do because I want to make sure that the kingdom of God is expanding. And the only way we can do that is to protect it.
Welcome to the Lightwell podcast. We are really pleased to be joined today by Brendon Frankell, senior producer for Lightwell Insurance Advisors in the state of Georgia. Brendon, how you doing today?
I'm good, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Really glad to have you. Really glad you're joining us. So I want to start with a little bit of a preface question to the whole interview, which is, how did you come to be a Lightwell Insurance Advisor in the state of Georgia?
Yes, neat story. The short version, I had some career frustrations with my previous employer. I was doing personal lines insurance, and I went in and sat down with my pastor, and he said, 15 minutes before you walk through the door, I threw this away, and it was a letter from Austin Lord, who is the owner of our agency. He sent.
Yes, one of the managing partners in your agency.
Yeah. So he sent letters out to all of his churches looking for a producer, and so it literally was just, God, mandating the steps, and was really, really neat. So I called Austin, and, within the week I had the job, and that's been 7 years ago now. So
word.
Been awesome. Yep.
That's a fast 7 years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And a really cool backstory. And I know Austin's happy about that. I know we're happy about that. And so along the way, now you've served for 7 years. In that 7 years, I know that you have worked with a lot of different types of Christian ministries, including a number of K through 12 Christian schools. And so when you are working with a K through 12 Christian school, what is a typical type of coverage or set of coverages that are unique to them that you'd want to make sure they're aware of?
Yeah, neat. So for Christian schools, first of all, of course, you start out with the property coverage. You got the commercial buildings. The basic things that you need, like your general liability and those types of coverages. But even for Christian schools specifically, you got to get into things like religious communication, sexual misconduct liability, things like directors and officers, education preparation, and all of these are more nuanced coverages for Christian schools because they don't exist in the realm of what a public school would exist in. Their sole existence comes from their need and their desire to preach the gospel, right, and to make the name of Jesus heard. And so it comes with a very unique set of risks that these schools have, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, so you talked about the difference then between public schools who would need general commercial coverages. What
That's
are
right.
some of those coverages that apply uniquely to Christian education?
Yeah. So the Christian communication portion of it, this is going to give them the opportunity to say what they need to say and not really feel like their hands are tied, right? And so our religious freedom protection is going to back that. Okay. So if a Christian school has a situation where somebody was to challenge, their right to say something, things like education preparation, we have situations where some kids go to a Christian school and they leave that school for whatever reason, and they go to either a public school or another Christian school. And maybe they try to sue the school because they didn't feel properly prepared for the next phase of their life. And we've had a lot of situations like that. A big one that I see, especially in South Georgia, I know over the past several months, we've had 4 sexual misconduct allegations within Christian schools in South Georgia, and it's an epidemic. And what's neat for us is we have what's called image restoration. We don't want these ministries to lose their integrity in their communities, right? And so the neat portion of that is we can offer them, public relations liability coverage. So what do we put on Facebook? What do we say to the media? What do we put on our website to make sure that we can keep our doors open while navigating this really challenging event, right?
Absolutely. It's interesting how the reputational risk of that is as real and tangible as the property risk of the building that you're walking through.
That's exactly
so
right.
How do you help a Christian education insurance decision maker understand that without being scary? Like, how do you help them understand what's at play for their school?
I think you just have to be real with people, Adam. I think that you have to kind of put yourself in their shoes, and you have to I want to be responded to, or how would I want this explained to me if I was sitting in their shoes? You have to be real and raw with people and say, what would you do in this event? And it's not to be a fear monger. It's not to scare them, but it's really to listen to their heart and listen to, the fears that they may have, and offer some type of solace to that, and some type of peace to those situations. Because we have a situation with one of our current clients, for example. He came from a school where he cleaned up a sexual misconduct mess from a school in another state. He gets here, and as soon as he gets here, he has another one at this school. And so I just called him. He's actually not one of our insureds. He's just a prospect, somebody that I've created a relationship with. And I wasn't able to offer him coverage. I wasn't able to offer him any type of, any type of money for this situation. But I just called him. We had about a 30-minute conversation where I just listened to his heart. And I just was there to kind of mourn with him for this situation. And I think that's where we shine as far as Lightwell goes, is we're not here just solely to exist to offer people a commercial liability product. We're here to listen to folks and hear their heart on what they want to do in their communities. And when something like this arises, it's really important to meet them where they are, and not try to make them scared, but just kind of be with them in that moment, for sure.
That's really, really good. That's very well said. And it also speaks to what we talk about within the Lightwell agency world as a risk assessment, like kind of walking someone through their facility and through their programs to identify areas of risk. So talk us through what a risk assessment looks like for a K through 12 school.
Yeah. So our risk assessments, I feel like we're a little bit more thorough than maybe other agencies in the overall commercial liability world. We go kind of into the nuts and bolts of what the ministry actually does. We ask about all of the buildings, of course. We sit down probably for 30 to 45 minutes, really ask about the buildings, ask about the roof ages. We kind of go through all of the different intricacies of their ministries, right? So if they have an after-school program, they have things like sports, those types of activities, and even more nuanced than that, we actually go into those activities more in depth. How many sports games do you have? How many players on each team? Do you guys have concussion liability? What we really get specific in these things, because our job is to make sure that when we leave there, they can go do ministry and they don't feel like their hands are handcuffed, and they can feel confident that the things that they're doing is we're going to have their back, right? And so if we're more thorough in those investigations, then I think that they're going to have more of an opportunity to really do what Jesus is calling them to do, and do ministry, right? Where we can take care of the risk management side.
That's so you mentioned a lot of things in there I might not have expected, like the number of players on a roster, or do they have concussion liability insurance? When you are talking about those different risk factors, are there specific things that jump out as like, this moves the needle the most for risks related to K through 12 Christian schools? And often, what are the things that maybe are eye-opening for that insurance decision maker that they didn't know were presenting a risk to their school?
Oh, for sure. And I think, just like you said, it kind of opened your eyes, because this is something you do, right? You're in the insurance world, and talking about some of these things. How much more do some of these schools not know the risks that they're actually inviting into their lives, right?
Right.
And so it's important to have those conversations. Again, like I said, the things like the concussion liability. What happens if one of these kids gets hit in the head and they die, right? What is the protocol for that? And can we give them a really good experience? And that's an extreme example, but can we give them a really good experience on the front end to make sure that even if these things do happen, that we've got their back, right?
Absolutely. So what are when you go through that risk assessment, are there key indicators of, hey, if you have this type of sport, or if you have these, this many people on the team, or these certain activities, this is going to make your risk profile harder to insure or harder to place coverage with? Are there anything like that you could help me and others understand?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's necessarily harder to insure or more complicated. I think that you just have to know the ins and outs of the industry and kind of the way to underwrite it correctly. If you listen, the biggest thing is really sitting down and listening to what they're saying. Because if you just go in there with a bunch of talking points and you're just trying to spout off everything that you can do, then you're really going to miss a lot of things that they actually have, and you're not going to be as prepared to bring them something that literally blows them away, right? So if you could think about all of these things, if you can bring them something that no other agent is bringing them, that's really going to give you kind of an upper hand. But risky things like football, basketball, baseball, all of those sports, in that sense, they come with just added risks.
Sure.
Just, you're inviting risk when you create things like that, and it's not a bad thing, but you got to
Right.
make sure that you're underwriting these things correctly. And it's important for us as Lightwell agents to make sure we're asking the correct questions, and then we're listening to when they respond, because there's things that they're going to say that you haven't even asked, that you say that you pick up on, and you may never even tell them that you listened to what they were saying, but you bring it back and you say, oh, by the way, during our conversation that you mentioned that you did this or you did that, and it really didn't come up in our conversation, but I want to let you know this is covered as well.
That's so good. Well, it's interesting to this is not, part of the questions I had prepared, but the things that often present those risks are the things that make school enjoyable and activities enjoyable for students. And like you said, that's really an extension of the mission of that school. And so
Right.
making sure they can have their kids enjoying coming to school is part of how they carry out their mission. And
That's
then you
exactly right.
protecting that keeps them at peace with how they conduct those activities.
Yep.
So let's talk about some resources related to this group, K through 12 Christian schools.
Yeah.
What are some resources that are often helpful for them to, be proactive about risk management or stay educated about, what the latest thing they need to be aware of in that area?
Yeah, I think the biggest resource that they're going to have is their Lightwell agent. Okay, that's going to we are the front line for who they need in the event, whether it be some type of policies or procedures they need to create, if it's questions about their coverages, if it's questions about claims, those types of things. But specifically for Lightwell, our team has done a really good job of creating what's called an online resource library, where you can go on and you can get checklists, you can get things like policies and procedures, you can get brochures, you really can get anything that you need regarding to ministry risk management. I feel confident that you can get on there and really search any topic as it pertains to ministry, and you'd be able to create yourself a really good risk management portfolio just by going on that website. And so another thing that we have is what's called Legal Assist, which is really neat for our ministries. It's free for customers and non-customers alike. It's a free legal assistance for ministries that may have just basic questions about things they want to do. Maybe they want to create some type of sports team, or maybe they want to do something like create a communication policy between minors and teachers, right? So how does that work? What do I put in a communication brochure that's going to ensure these kids are having appropriate conversations with their teachers, right?
Sure.
And it's one of those proactive things that I was talking about earlier when we're talking about the sexual misconduct side of things. It's one little safeguard you can put in place that really gives you the opportunity to prevent these things from happening in the first place, right? And our online resource library will give our customers the added benefit just by it existing, right?
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a wealth of material through Brotherhood Mutual with Legal
Yeah.
Assist and that online resource library. That when administrators and decision makers take that kind of thing seriously, it makes a material impact to a student's safety and experience of Christian education, which is of the utmost importance, of course.
Yeah.
So you get this really unique seat as a insurance advisor walking alongside a K-12 Christian school. You get this front row seat to the work that they're doing. What's some things that you've seen within that community that are really inspiring to you to stay in the game? Like what are K-12 Christian schools doing in the state of Georgia that's moving you to be excited about the work you're doing?
Oh my goodness. Well, what really is inspiring to me, we've got a lot of these underserved communities in Georgia. We have a fairly impoverished state. A lot of places in Georgia where there's issues with drugs and substance abuse and alcohol abuse and that kind of stuff. And a lot of these ministries are going in and they're planting these ministries in these really difficult communities. and they're offering tuition assistance. They're offering full scholarships. They're creating a place for these kids to go because we don't have what's called school choice in Georgia. We can't, like, you have to go to school where you're zoned to go, right? And so a lot of these Christian ministries are coming in and they're creating a safe place for these students that may not have an alternative, and they'll go pick them up. Again, they're trying to do their very best to offer resources to these kids where they're getting a quality education, and more importantly, they're getting a set of morals and principles that really will last them through the rest of their lives. And it's based on the Bible, and they can have something that not only changes their current situation, but really changes the rest of their lives for sure.
That's so good.
It is
That's
neat.
so good. I love that. That's a powerful testimony to the work of the church and the work of the churches that support these K-12 schools. That's so cool. So here's a question that I'm not going to double back and pull up this podcast in 5 years and prove that you were right or wrong. But as you look to the horizon, where do you see evolving needs for K-12 Christian schools here in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see ahead for them?
Yeah, like anything with the insurance premium side of things, we've got to make sure that we're offering these ministries value, that we're not just going in as just a regular insurance agent and saying, oh, here's your policy, this, take it or leave it, essentially. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we're operating more from a place of empathy, because some of these ministries operate on such a tight margin. And the only way really to do that, sometimes we have challenges on our side if they've had claims, issues like that, if the state's had a lot of weather events, that kind of stuff. We have issues on the insurance side where we have to make sure that we're being smart about what we're doing financially as well. But that gives us an opportunity to go in and look at other things like their ministry payroll. And what can we do for their benefits? Are we able to save the money on the benefits side? What can we do as far as helping them dig through their policy? Do they still have that football program? Are they still doing that after school program? Are they still doing this? And focusing on these ministries on a case by case basis and going forward, I think that would give us the opportunity to really help more. But really, what I see coming in the future is really the value that we can add to the ministry from a financial standpoint is not going to just be tied to a commercial liability policy. It's going to be the holistic approach to the ministry, and where else can we give them a net positive for their efforts, right? So if we can go in, we can save them money on their benefits, or save them money on their payroll, or save them money on some of the other things that they're having to pay money for. That'll give them a better experience, and it'll help us help them as well.
Well, that's so good, especially because, like you said, one of the challenges now, and I would say only more and more going forward, is it is really hard to operate a school. It's really hard to operate a school really well, and it's really hard to manage that when your budget is sometimes got razor thin margins. And so I really appreciate the way you're articulating, coming alongside them from what you do to help alleviate some of that pain and stress.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go off of the script again and just ask, for you in this work, what keeps you going with this mission? Because you did commercial insurance outside of the church space before you came to Lightwell. So what makes this job sort of a place where you can operate both the insurance part of your professional brain, but then also what's your driving heart for staying in the work?
I still believe that the local church is Jesus's plan to redeem the earth. And so us being able to partner with that, I can think of no better vocation for me. Personally, I felt like I was supposed to work with the church in some capacity from an early age, since I came to know the Lord. And I think for me, it drives from a place of wanting to see the church succeed, and not just the church in the four walls of the church, but the big C. Us coming together with ministries, giving them a really good option and a good experience where they can trust us, and they can really feel like we have their back, and we really do get the opportunity to no pun intended, shine a light on the things that they really need, and we're the experts in this, and we have to take that mantle and not be afraid to say it. We don't have to be afraid to say, hey, this is what I do. I'm really good at what I do. let me protect you. And I'm not good at what I do because, I'm a good agent. I'm good at what I do is because I care about what I do, right? I invest time in what I do because I want to make sure that the kingdom of God is expanding. And the only way we can do that is to protect it.
Outstanding. That's so good. Okay, Brendon, before we wrap up, anything that you would want to share that we haven't covered yet?
I think you guys asked me what was a neat story that I had just based on what I'm working with Christian K-12 schools. And there's one school in particular that came to mind. They're a startup. They've actually been in existence for 2 years. They're growing like crazy. But the cool thing about that situation is they came to me with the idea of starting a Christian school, right? The idea of starting a Christian school. This wasn't, they had talks and, they'd gotten some people together and started thinking about the process, and really working with us gave them the confidence to actually pull the trigger to do it, right? And so this is not just risk management that we're offering these people. We're offering them a sense of peace, a sense of hope, a sense of, hey, we can actually do this, and we have somebody that's going to stand behind us if things go off the rails, right? They took all the risk on the front end. We're going to take all the risk on the back end, right? So we want to make sure that we're really providing a good experience for those schools. And I felt so much joy for that school because I really felt like not only did we insure them correctly, but we actually were one of the catalysts to help them start their ministry.
That's so good. Oh, that's so good. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's fantastic. What a cool thing that you got to be at the forefront of for that school, for that ministry. Well, Brendon, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your insight with us and your stories about what's going on in the state of Georgia, particularly related to the schools there. So may God bless you and the K-12 schools in Georgia and all the ministries you get the chance to serve. Thanks again for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. I appreciate it.
My thanks once again to Brendon Frankell, Senior Producer for Lightwell Insurance Advisors in the state of Georgia. What a great conversation. Absolutely loved hearing his heart for K-12 schools in his area. Thank you for joining us. However you're making this part of your day, we really appreciate you taking this conversation in. And if there's anything that you heard today that sparks a question or a need for you or the organization that you serve, simply go to lightwell.com. You can find any of those resources we discussed, or you can connect with an advisor in your area. So until the next episode of the podcast, or we see each other again, let's go and let it shine.